Jesus knew that everything begins and ends with our hearts, and that they only pay lip service to God, and that they're bound by their human regulations. And Jesus, quoting Scripture too, understands Scripture, but understands that God's will comes to us when we put first things first, when love and mercy are first, and not human regulations. And in so doing, he gives a new definition of what's clean and unclean, and it concerns the heart. And finally, a fifth one I'd just like to look briefly at in this second section is the Canaanite woman. Because this is where Jesus sees a little bit that, hey, I'm failing with the Jewish people, but perhaps I'm meant to go elsewhere. Jesus again withdraws from the Jewish authorities who are attacking him. A number of times in Matthew, Jesus withdraws from his conflict with the Pharisees and the scribes, and just to be with his new band of disciples. He's in the region of Tyre and Sidon, pagan territory. A Canaanite woman comes up, called Canaanite, not Syro-Phoenician, because for Matthew, the word Canaanite amongst Jewish people they're our traditional enemies. They're our, I guess for some cultures that have that, talk about, their foes, and there'd be one people that always speak about. Now she has this most magnificent entry. Have mercy on me, Lord, Son of David. That is an extraordinary greeting of faith. She understands him as who he is. And then he ignores her 3 times. And he says too, I'm sent only to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Because of the strong sense of the absolute priority of the Jewish people of Israel. And then comes the extraordinary piece. Jesus is outwitted by this woman of outstanding faith. And Jesus changes. And Matthew is using this story to show us that there will be a movement away from the Jews who reject to the pagan peoples. And there's a little contrast here between her outstanding faith and Peter a little bit later, who will be spoken of as you man of little faith. Okay, now just the last part. The third part is Peter's confession. So I won't be doing all of chapter 16, but I just want to end with this extraordinary piece, which for the Catholic Church has been so strong in our understanding of who Peter is. We have in this chapter 16, verses 13 to 23, we have a breakthrough in the disciples' understanding of who Jesus is. We have the establishment, the foundation of the disciples as a community, called here church, ecclesia, church. And we have a little bit of teaching on what kind of Messiah Jesus is. So, first off, this scene takes place at Caesarea Philippi, which is 20 miles north of a little lake north of the Sea of Galilee. So it's a long way north in pagan territory, near the source of the River Jordan at the foot of Mount Hermon. And this place, Caesarea Philippi, was originally called Panaeus, a Greek city, but then a new place was built, dedicated to Caesar by Philip, the Tetrarch. So it became Caesarea Philippi to distinguish it from Caesarea on the coast, Caesarea Maritima, where the Roman procurator lived. It had a lot of religious, pagan overtones, this place. And there was once Jerusalem was destroyed, the Roman soldiers who went to destroy Jerusalem in 66 AD, they bivouacked up there and they partied up there after Jerusalem was destroyed. And a temple was built there to Caesar. So as Matthew is writing, all this, it's placed at Caesarea Philippi. Who do people say I am? And we have the extraordinary prophets mentioned, including Jeremiah. So Jesus was perceived in an extraordinary way. But who do you say I am? And after being with Jesus all this time, the disciples are asked. I guess that's not an easy question to ask. And I guess all of us would be thinking, what would we say? In our own words, without all the religious la-di-da, what would we say about Jesus? And who do you say I am? And lovely Peter said, you are the Christ. You are the Messiah. You're the anointed one, the Son of the living God. You're the anointed one, the Messiah. And I read a beautiful little comment which says, you fill up my senses with the aroma of God. Because the word Christ means anointed. So in a real sense, Peter was able to say, you're the one we've been looking for, unquestionably. And you're the Son of the living God. You're God's beloved Son. We've seen you. You seem so close to him. Simon, son of Jonah. Son of Jonah? Perhaps it means that, to fully understand me, you've had a revelation now, but all that it means, you're going to be suffering like Jonah through death and resurrection, 3 days in the belly of the wave, but then you'll live again. You are rock. English, it doesn't work. French, it does. The word for rock in French is Pierre. The name Pierre. You are rock. We say Peter. Doesn't work really for us. But you're a rock. And on this rock, I'm going to build my ecclesia, my church. Peter appears in this passage as the rock which the church is built, as the holder of the keys of the words of everlasting life, and as the one who binds and looses. So he's given a privileged position within this church. We should just say too that Matthew uses the word ecclesia rather than the word synagogue, although both mean exactly the same, being called together or being placed together. And he does that because he wants to distinguish us from the synagogue. The ecclesia, we're a group of people called by God, rather than the synagogue, a group of people put together by God. And the gates of hell will never hold out against it. The gates of the underworld will never crush this church. Death is not stronger than the life God offers us in the church. So that's just a little bit on Peter and on this foundation of the new community at this time when Jesus realizes he's failed in his attempt to convert the Jewish people to his understanding of the kingdom, and he needs to ensure that God's kingdom survives in what we now know as church.